Hello, fellow key searchers. Thanks for joining me yet again on another crazy adventure with the Secret 8 treasure hunt. I'm going to follow up on my hypothesis that the jewels are telling us a story about a physical clue that can be seen from where they are buried. I did part 1 for the solved puzzles as well as San Francisco and Montreal, and now I'm doing the others. So the first one that I decided to take a look at is Milwaukee, where the amethyst is tossed in the air as part of a juggling act, as you can see here. And I started figuring out what historical figure in the city would this apply to, as Byron Preiss was a huge history nut. And so I thought about looking at what the juggling act represents, and it's a figure of speech as well for attempting to handle multiple obligations while trying to satisfy competing interests. Well, that fits the bill for Juno Park, the Solomon Juno Monument, which is about the founder and first mayor of the city of Milwaukee that negotiated with Native Americans when he worked for a fur trading company and actually wound up marrying a mixed race woman, which is obviously pretty controversial at the time. The property that he lived at was actually torn down, and it is where the Mitchell building is today. And so if we look at the Juno Monument, you can see here he had 2 different roles in his life, and one where he was a politician and the other where he was trading with Native Americans. And many people have already been aware of the hands matching the image and the relief on the Juno Monument. And then no one that I am aware of has actually brought this up, as verse 8 says to view the 3 stories of Mitchell. Well, at the Mitchell building there is this plaque that tells about Solomon Juno's life, where his house was before. After that, it was part of the Wisconsin Marine and Fire Insurance Company. That building was torn down, and then a new building built on top of that, which is today's Mitchell building. So there you have it, 3 stories of Mitchell. The next puzzle that I decided to look at was St. Augustine, where the sapphire to me looks like a fossilized jewel embedded in rock, as you can see here in the image. And so again, the key action word here is embedded in rock. And so what does that mean? Well, it's surrounded completely by something, so it's almost implanted. And so that got me to thinking, as people have been talking about the Castillo de San Marcos, and it is actually made of this coquina stone, which means tiny shell. So they're little fossilized seashells, as you can see here. And there are several monuments throughout St. Augustine that are made of this material. The other one is the Old Spanish Trail 0 milestone. And so in addition to the Fountain of Youth, I'm assuming, I didn't research it too well because I personally don't believe it's there. I'm more in the camp of the fort or the milestone marker that you can see here. Again, I know very little about these puzzles. The next city is Charleston, where the diamond is hiding in plain sight. So this is, again, each jewel is in such a unique location within the image. This one is in the bottom right corner in a completely dark space, yet it's brightly lit, which means it's in the foreground. It wants to be noticed. So I looked at, again, the action words here, hiding in plain sight. To remain unseen despite being in full unrestricted view. Well, what is famous about Charleston that could be seen that way? Well, there's Fort Sumter, who is obviously sticking out like a sore thumb in the ocean, protecting Charleston. And so that got me onto Fort Johnson, where they have the harbor master's house. And why is Fort Johnson relevant? Because that's actually where the Civil War began. And we know that Byron Preiss was a huge history nut, especially with the Civil War, as like a Civil War historian. So then I just Googled about any white houses near Fort Johnson, Fort Sumter, and actually one came up, the Medical University of South Carolina had the president's house built there, and it was actually nicknamed the White House. And so as you can see here, Fort Sumter protects the entrance to Charleston Harbor. So it's hiding in plain sight. Obviously, any attacker would know that they're there to defend themselves, but yet they're technically hiding. And then here's the White House, that is obviously a historic landmark. But again, I don't know much. These are just my thoughts. Lastly, I looked at Houston. Other people had mentioned this before. I believe it was JM from the Secret podcast that brought this to my attention years ago, when he said that the images all had action. He's the one that got me onto this topic. And so I remembered thinking, yes, the genie's plume smoke looks like a rocket taking off. So then I started looking at the gem in this image, and it looks like a stepping stone resting on the ground. And so what is a stepping stone? Again, it has multiple meanings. It technically literally means a stone that you step on, but it also can represent an action or event that helps you to progress towards a specific goal, like the moon landing. So rocket launch, NASA is in Houston. And that brings us full circle to the stone is resting on the ground. Of all the images, this is the only one where the jewel is on the ground. That's ground control. So it obviously is supporting NASA with the whole Houston, we have a problem. Even though we know that's not the correct expression. So yeah, NASA mission ground control is there. And so I don't know much about how this is supported, or if this is a primary clue, secondary clue. I just think it's interesting that the jewels are telling us more than we know. And with that, I'm going to end this section and finish the rest of the puzzles in a follow-up video. But tell me, what do you think? Is there a different interpretation, an idiom interpretation of how the jewels are being represented in the video? Let me know. Thanks.